Hey everybody, I'm in the Pacific Northwest this week on tour, and so obviously I'm feeling compelled to listen to Sufjan Stevens' 2015 album, nay, masterpiece, Carrie and Lowell, about the death of his mother and his childhood in the Pacific Northwest. And let me tell you, I'm feeling things.
No, not again. The mustachioed soy boy saxophonist is going to talk about his feelings. What a
I'm sad sometimes, yes. And I know you are too, even those of you that would like to pretend otherwise. And when we feel down, music is, counterintuitively perhaps, just the antidote. Check out my video on Elliott Smith and Phoebe Bridgers to learn more about why that might be. When Carrie and Lowell came out, I listened to it incessantly. In fact, I would guess that it's easily my most listened to album. Side note, remember when iTunes used to show you that statistic of how many times you've listened to a song? I miss that. I really like to know that. Anyway, Carrie and Lowell, like all of Sufjan Stevens' music, is chock full of a musical device called a pedal point. You're going to hear an inverted pedal point starting right now. Listen to how that highest pitch, a concert G, sustains while the chords around it change. To my ears, a pedal point is an incredibly effective emotional element in music. And what's music for, if not for feeling deep emotions? A pedal point presents a listener with a paradox that perfectly parallels what it means to be a person on planet Earth. The unalterable individual, this high sustained note, cannot change who they are. But as the context around them changes, these beautifully moving chords right here, they are put into a new relief and appear different. You make a new friend. You move to a new town. You lose a loved one. You meet a life partner. You feel a profound shift inside, even though you're the same person that you always were. This is the effect of a pedal point. One immutable note refuses to move, and yet constantly changes in spite of itself. The effect is wistful, melancholic, and full of agonizing tension that begs for resolution. In this video, we're going to look at a bunch of different kinds of pedal points in the music of Sufjan Stevens, as well as in the work of other great composers, and in my own music as well. And hopefully I'll be able to help you hear the bitter complexities that I hear in a pedal point. This is Score Study with me, Brian Kroc. Part 1. Pedal points in the bass. Okay, let's start with the basics. Brittanica.com has a pretty good definition for pedal points, at least at first. They say it's a tone sustained through several changes of harmony that may be consonant or dissonant with it. In instrumental music, it is typically in the bass. The name originates from the technique of prolonging a tone on the pedal keyboard of the organ. Okay, that seems about right. Only pedal points on the tonic and dominant notes actually have harmonic value. What the fuck? Who wrote this thing? They say harmonic value as if it's like a codified, measurable, known entity. Ridiculous. Don't get off track, Brian. As they correctly pointed out, pedal points most often occur in the bass, and I think it's a common misconception that they must occur in the bass. But as you'll soon see, you can have pedal points in the middle of or above changing chords. I think it should go without saying, but let me just point out that a pedal point is not the same as a drone, because a drone is just one note going on forever. It's kind of a square and a rectangle situation in that sometimes a drone can be a pedal point, but a pedal point is not always a drone, if that makes sense. Also, don't say pedal tone. Nope. You'll sound like an amateur.
They're a bunch of fucking amateurs.
A pedal tone is any given slide position on a trombone's fundamental or lowest pitch. So it's called a pedal point.
A great example of a pedal tone.
Nope.
Don't get off track, Brian. Keep moving forward. Okay, so since pedal points most often occur in the bass, let's check out some examples like that. Check out, just as a random example, you could kind of check out any symphony, but check out Mozart's Jupiter Symphony. Notice how the pedal point on the dominant or fifth scale tone really ramps up the tension. When your music theory professor talks about a pedal point, this is the kind of shit that she's talking about, okay? 1, 5, 1. I don't know. So let this be your main takeaway. Pedal points are somewhat related to suspensions in that they are non-chord tones that sustain into changing harmony, and they're used for building tension. It's just a very effective way of delaying resolution, and it's very inherently dramatic to listen to. Now, you don't necessarily need to sustain the bass note in order for it to be heard as a pedal point. As long as you emphasize that bass note, you can build a riff around it. Check out, for example, Footprints by America's greatest living composer, Wayne Shorter. Sufjan Stevens has been using pedal points like this in the bass for his entire career. And just to pick one example, check out Chicago, a song from Come On Feel the Illinois, which is a CD that my sister gave me for Christmas in 2005 and which has continued to blow my mind ever since. Chicago turns out to be a really interesting example because it features multiple different pedal points, and the changing harmony is only implied by the counterpoint of Sufjan's voice and the violin. The Footprints-esque bass part, were it sustained, would create a pedal point on the power chord D, A, and D. And in the background, a keyboard instrument of some kind repeats the same three notes over and over. So you have this suspended harmony and no real chords to speak of. However, the violin and the vocals have this messy counterpoint that clearly implies changing harmony from the tonic to the subdominant by way of a plagal cadence, all over a pedal point. This is just your most standard rock and roll move. You can hear Pete Townshend playing this with open chords on his electric guitar. Which brings me to my next point, actually, because a lot of Sufjan's writing involves sustaining the open strings of the guitar, creating inadvertent pedal points, which are not in the bass, but actually in the treble. Part 2. Open string pedal points. What I really want to focus on in this video are the less common and underappreciated pedal points that occur in the upper registers. Everyone should know that Sufjan Stevens writes really great string instrument parts, especially for the guitar, and one of the hallmarks of great guitar writing is exploiting its open strings. Letting the open strings ring out creates body and also volume. It's like putting down the sustain pedal on the piano. Check out, for example, The Predatory Wasp of the Palisades is Out to Get Us. This this is the song I would teach in acoustic guitar writing 101 if that were a class that I taught, because this is just a bunch of open position chords, a trope that goes back to the very beginning of the acoustic guitar as an instrument. Any amateur player can handle this.
But they're amateurs.
You just leave a couple fingers on the first position and then you move your first finger and your second finger around. So with a capo on the second fret, you finger an open D chord, and then you move your first finger down to the note B, then you move your second finger, and finally you relax on an open E string. This is like every John Mayer song. This is something that I do in my own guitar writing constantly. Check out, as an obvious example, the final movement of my sweet Tamil Pious from my first record, Big Heart Machine. I asked the guitar player in the band, Ollie Hirvonen, to retune his guitar to the notes D, A, D, G, A, E, and then he sustains those upper A and E open strings while changing the chords beneath. I wanted to recall in the listener's ear an earlier movement, the third movement, Stinson Beach, where first the piano sustains the same open fifth, and then later on in an epic section, the brass sustains that open fifth above everything, creating a beautiful pedal point in the treble register. With this music, I was trying to evoke the feeling that I had sitting on the beach and looking out at the ocean with my sister after a great hike. At times like these, you feel the hugeness of the universe. You can't help but think of the sustained natural processes that have carved out the mountains and the ocean over millennia, and you feel delightfully small. You step out of yourself and you're no longer the center of your own universe for a minute. It's so sweet and awe-inspiring that it could make you cry. And you know, these types of open string pedal points aren't limited to the acoustic guitar, of course. In fact, I'm reminded of the incredibly beautiful Fantasia Upon One Note by Henry Purcell, written sometime around 1680. This piece is written for viol consort, and in it, Purcell is flexing his creativity by limiting himself to the constraint of having the note A3 sustained on a viol for the entirety of the composition. I mean, we talk about boring viola parts in string sections, but this is just crazy. One player has to sustain an open A string on their viol for 3 minutes straight. And FYI, Baroque tuning is A equals 415. So this note actually sounds more like a A flat to our contemporary ears, but know that it is actually just a really flat A. And man, appreciate how beautiful Baroque tuning sounds. By the way, there are also tons of songs that have just one note for a melody, and yes, that's technically a kind of pedal point, but that's not really what this video is about, so I'm going to redirect you to great videos by the Davids, both Bruce and Bennett. Part 3, Carrie and Lowell. So I got the idea for this video as I was running around Seattle on a gorgeous day, and I felt compelled to listen to Carrie and Lowell. It's just such a comforting sound world with almost no percussion and tons of plucked string instruments, lots of reverb, and lots of synth pads. It also features some of the most brilliant lyric writing that I've ever heard. When I really think about it, the textures and the lyrics, as gorgeous as they are only partially responsible for what makes my heart ache when I listen to this music. It's also the notes themselves and how they interact. These constantly sustained pitches create a meditative space that allows you to hone in on Sufjan's genius, poetry, and just like the pedal points themselves, they beg you to reevaluate what they mean with each new listen. Check out John, My Beloved. First of all, the keyboard sound on this track is inspired. It sounds kind of like an unamplified Fender Rhodes that was close mic'd or something. Anyways, it's impossible not to notice that a concert D is repeated on every single quarter note for the entire duration of this 5-minute piece, very similarly to what Henry Purcell did in his Fantasia upon one note. Meanwhile, simple triadic shapes move around diatonically underneath it, and God, it is just so beautiful. In this track, Sufjan is praying in rather oblique metaphors to Jesus, essentially contemplating his relationship inside his religion and the existence of a higher power. And what better way to simultaneously express the meditative space of prayer and convey the infinity of a higher power than to intone one note over and over that seems to have existed before the piece began and might continue forever. The second half of Should Have Known Better is one of the very few uplifting moments, or at least outwardly uplifting moments on the entire album, featuring something of a percussion section with somebody softly patting on their lap and the amiable jangle of sleigh bells. Here, Sufjan is choosing to focus his attention on the miraculous beauty of the present world around him, rather than dwelling on the upsetting truths of his past. And he sets these lyrics in basically the same way as John My Beloved. That is, uncomplicated diatonic harmony, meandering below an ever-present pedal point. I should have known better. Nothing can be changed. The past is still the past. The bridge to nowhere. I should have wrote a letter explaining what I feel, that empty feeling. Don't back down. Concentrate on seeing the breakers in the bar, the neighbors greeting. My brother had a daughter. The beauty that she brings, illumination. Don't back down. There is nothing left. The breakers in the bar. No reason to live. I'm a fool in the fetter. Rose of Aaron's beard, where you can't reach me. Don't back down, concentrate on seeing the breakers in the bar, the neighbors greeting. My brother had a daughter. The beauty that she brings, illumination, illumination. Many of the tracks on Carrie and Lowell end in a similar way, which is that the song proper is abruptly torn away with an empty chasm of swirling, reverb-drenched pads left in its wake. It's very painful, and I particularly love the way that Sufjan uses pedal points at the end of Drawn to the Blood to fight his way through tension to a peaceful conclusion. Around 2 minutes and 20 seconds into the song, a high C fades in and is sustained for the rest of the piece. The timbre of that C morphs and changes, but the pitch remains constant. And meanwhile, a colorful array of chord changes fade in and out beneath it. Anyways, I could go on, but I really don't want to rob you of the pleasure of listening for yourself. Part 4. They're everywhere. As I've been working on this episode of Score Study, I guess I've become more alert to pedal points because they've been presenting themselves to me everywhere. For example, last night in my almost nightly performance of the band's Visit, I was smacked in the face by the pedal points that begin Omar Sharif. And then when I got home and got into bed and started watching Rick and Morty, there I heard pedal points in the amazing introductory music to Rick and Morty again. And then I heard this gorgeous Randy Newman song in Euphoria. Maybe I watched too much TV. I started to imagine pedal points in my immediate environment, like the incessant squeal of the central heat in my hotel room, the hum of the refrigerator, the rhythmic squeaking of my neighbor's bed, and then the brown noise that I played from my phone to drown out that squeaking. So I don't want to give the wrong impression that somehow using pedal points is a technique exclusive to Sufjan Stevens. On the contrary, you're going to find them everywhere. Just now in this overly long diatribe, I've been able to show you examples in jazz, classical, and pop music from 400 years of Western history. I'll make space in the comments below for you guys to share your favorite examples of pedal points with me. When John Cage visited one of the first anechoic chambers in the 1940s, he said, "In that silent room, I heard two sounds, one high and one low. Afterward, I asked the engineer in charge, why? If the room was so silent, I had heard two sounds. He said, the high one was your nervous system in operation. The low one was your blood in circulation. Subconsciously, we are always hearing a pedal point in the bass as well as a pedal point in the treble. And as long as we are alive, we cannot be rid of them."